Johnny Vivento here. I know the world is going crazy, isn't it, right now? Everything's going nuts. The world politically, wars all over. We've got 50 wars going around the world. What I'd like to talk to you about is I'm wearing my President Zelenskyy military pullover today. The one that Trump hated and Vance hated. They all hated it because he came to the White House like this. And to be honest with you, I don't blame him. Okay? Zelenskyy had no right to dress that way to go to see the President of the United States in the White House. He's a political leader. He's the president. He's the boss. He's in charge. He's at war. He wants money. He's coming here to get help and military aid. And Trump sees the long picture here. You know, he sees the picture down the road that has caused this. Okay? Zelenskyy was warned, not Zelenskyy, I'm sorry, the previous regime in the Ukraine before Zelenskyy was warned, 2013, do not poke the bear because they will come back at you. There's no way Putin wants NATO on his doorstep. There's no way that he wants the EU on his doorstep. He doesn't want them on the doorstep. He has enough problems with Finland, who are also derogatory against Russia because they've had a long-standing war and skirmish and they were invaded by the Russians, of course, in 1939 or 1940, I think. But so there's been a lot of hatred there. Although Finns and Russians get on well together generally. There's a lot of Russians in Finland, and they get on well, I guess, and things are better. But the Ukrainians, and they're all mixed. You know, Ukrainians and Russians, they have almost the same religion. They're just mixed. Families are mixed, okay, especially in the border regions between Ukraine and Russia. Families are mixed. There's a lot of Russians in the Ukraine. There's a lot of Ukrainians in Russia. Okay, you can look it up. It's on Wikipedia. You can see. And this war is not really about that as much as history, okay? And it's not a long time history, which has been going on for years in the Crimea and whatever. The British were in Crimea in the 1800s, and now they want to send troops again. Now, Britain is not in the EU. They're the only country really trying to help the Ukraine in this war. That they say, well, wrong has been done and we're going to help you. Okay, the other EU countries who Ukraine are trying to join are really standing back, saying, no, we'll give you some money, but we're not going to get involved. But the British have said, boots on the ground. They've actually said it. The Prime Minister's come out and said, we'll put boots on the ground, British soldiers in the Ukraine defending it. So far, I believe 800,000 Russians are either dead or wounded in this war, and I think it's similar to that in the Ukraine. I think in Ukraine has 120,000 deaths so far, and I believe there is 100,000 people missing. Okay, so there's potentially 220,000 people dead so far. Zelenskyy is willing to join the EU and to become a member of NATO. He's willing to lose that amount again. He is willing. When they've been told 10 years ago by a British politician in Strasbourg and Brussels, he stood up and said, there's going to be trouble and you're going to lose a lot of people. This is what's going to happen. He foresaw it. A guy called Nigel Farage foresaw that. And the whole of the EU in Brussels, or in Strasbourg I think it was, they hushed. They couldn't believe he actually came out with it. Well, I'm going to tell you something. This is what he did. He actually said that and he's been proved right. Okay? There's no way that in 2025 there should be wars losing this amount of people. I think the Russians have lost 800,000 people either dead or, they haven't said if they're dead or wounded, but the estimate is 500,000 dead and 300,000 wounded on the Russian side. Don't forget they're coming in with their artillery and their weapons, and they're facing people in buildings. Okay, so they're going to lose more people that way. It's going to happen. It's just the way, especially in this modern warfare stuff. It's an awful situation. But one situation that I think has not been publicized in any American, British, European, Western newspaper, that in what am I saying? In 1940-41, when the Germans attacked the Soviet Union, 350,000 Ukrainians joined the German army against Russia. I don't think a lot of people know that. 350,000. They're actually, the official figure was 250, but then it's been bumped up. Okay, there's been documents filed. It's 350,000. If you ever saw the concentration camps during World War II, Ukrainian guards were at every single concentration camp. Okay, now if you read the transcripts from Jewish people or Gypsy people or homosexual people who were in these camps, they always said Ukrainian guards were there at all times. Thousands of Ukrainian guards joined the German concentration camp system. Okay, now that is an absolute fact. They're estimating 100,000 Ukrainians were guarding the camps. They're estimating that 150,000 Ukrainians were killed in the German advance. They're estimating that another 50,000 were killed in the Stalingrad era, where the Germans lost, well actually, they had the Sixth Army of Germany lost 94,000 men in camps after the war. Only 6,000 survived from 100,000 men captured. They're estimating the Ukrainians lost 50,000 men in that conflict. Okay? They're estimating that 100,000 Ukrainians guarded the camps, and I believe them. 100 to 150,000, and that's the estimate. So, do you think the Russians have forgotten? I don't think so. It's always been in their heart that we'll get them back one day. Okay, it's always been in there. It's just, and if you see in the United States, Ukrainians and Russians used to be together. They're always together, they seem to always be together. A lot of them are Jewish, so Jewish Ukrainians, Jewish Russians, kind of like a friends. Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, they're kind of all together, but the actual real Russians, when I say the real Russians, I mean the Russians who were like the Soviet Russians, like the communist Russians. They always had it in for the Ukrainians because of this, because of what happened in World War II. And that's still going on today, believe me. Zelenskyy is Jewish, okay? I don't know whether you know that. President Zelenskyy is Jewish, and which is a good thing. And he's now the president of the Ukraine. Somehow he's got it in his head that they can win the war and they want more arms. There's no way they're going to win the war. It's impossible. It can't be done. It would never happen. It's all about Crimea, where the population is 80 to 90% Russian, but it does belong to Ukraine apparently. Well, not apparently, historically, I guess. And it is a small chip to lose that many people for. It's almost like Kosovo, okay, which the Serbians say was theirs, the Albanians say it was theirs, and look how many people have died in that conflict in Kosovo. And now the Kosovans, they can't wait to get the hell out. They're in every country in Europe, okay. They've absolutely and seriously, it's a disgraceful thing. 2025, that we're still having this going on. But believe me, I'm not anti-Ukraine. I'm just saying that Trump knows the facts, okay, and that's why he gave Zelenskyy such a cold reception in Washington, mainly because he knows the history. And anybody in their right mind, if you know the history, you know the history. It's just the way it is, and read up on it, and you will see. You will see. Read up on it. The poor Ukrainians are dying because some president wants to defy Moscow, okay, and it's wrong, this defiance has been going on for 30 years since the breakup of the Soviet Union, but Zelenskyy really stirred the pot, okay? He absolutely stirred the pot, and this is what's happened, and it's a disgraceful thing, and Trump knows this. Trump knows this. I don't care what he says. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows what time it is, President Trump, okay? Make no mistake. And I love you all. Sorry to come up with a political thing, but I had to do it because I was wearing this. I thought I looked a bit like President Zelenskyy, so I thought, yeah, I'll come out and talk about it. And Ukrainian people, God bless you all. To lose one person is enough. Not the amount that's been lost on both sides. It's absolutely disgraceful. 2025, how this could not have been averted, how this could have not been averted is absolutely disgraceful. Love you all. Bye.